follow. We're going to start with a presentation by the department with respect to just going over the history of this, the RFP, and the process that brought us to today. I'm going to certainly allow you to, have a conversation with the Department of Health and question that issue. Then there are members of some of the trade associations, some policy that we're going to ask to speak before we consider any one application, and let them comment generically on what they've heard the department say and any other comments with respect to the process. Then I'm going to just keep the conversation focused on making sure we've answered questions on that. Anybody who wants to make those comments. Then we're going to stop that part of the meeting and then proceed to individual applications. And individual applications will present them in the usual fashion. The applicant will be given permitted to speak if they so desire, and members of the public will also be able to speak. And then we'll go through what's on the agenda today, and then see if there are other questions that come up from either the public or from the council following that. Several people have signed up to speak. All I would ask is that please focus on the department's presentation. It may in turn answer many of the questions that you may wish to speak about, and so just don't sit there trying to figure out what you're saying without hearing what's being said. That's what I'm saying. Depending on how many people, I'm going to give the trade association, the professional association, a little more leeway in time. Normally we'll keep it to 3 minutes per speaker. I'm going to give them more time so that so we have the opportunity to speak. But as individuals speak, I'm going to hold to a 3-minute limit. So it'll be dependent on where we are and what we are, so we'll have a little flexibility. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to the department again.
Good morning, good afternoon. It feels like morning. It'll feel like morning when we're done. Lisa, you want to go? Okay. Better? What I want to try and do is put a context and go back and revisit what we were trying to do and the context of what we were trying to do, and then define the process by which we used. And because clearly there's been a great deal of attention paid to the process as well as what the results are. So I want to go back to, in December, the regulation. We passed an emergency regulation, and just make sure that members understand and revisit, the critical element here when we sat and debated this. I know we probably all remember the debate, was the issue that we were going to amend the need, and we were going to pursue the evaluation of new CHAs through a process that was going to be a request for proposals, which meant by it in and of itself there was going to be the transparency, and the exchange of information had to go through before that process started, and the criteria for evaluation needed to be in the RFA. The second issue that's important to note within that context is we were talking about that the way we were going to evaluate these proposals was to look at the factors that were already in the regulation relating to the definition of public need, but linking those factors to how they are going to advance the Medicaid redesign goals. And that was critical. The second issue, you might want to just go back, Lisa. The second issue, which really doesn't pertain to our debate today, had to do with the upstate CHAs or upstate evaluations, where there were counties with less than 2 CHAs. Then the applicants had the opportunity not only to show how those factors were going to advance MRT, but how they might improve access in the context of counties where there were real access problems. Okay, next one. The MRT goals, the 2 critical goals, and again, this was very transparent. This was on the web, relating to reducing utilization and moving the system essentially into a managed care environment. So I think in the context of the goals that we are trying to achieve, it was, the regulation and the MRT goals gave people a direction. And that direction really had to do with redesigning the system, not protecting individual providers, but moving the system in a very different way in which, in the future, you really were going to be providing care in a managed care environment. Okay, next one. We've gotten a number of comments that it was unclear to folks of what were the factors that they needed to apply in order to write a good application. And to be honest, there's a little bit of confusion on our part as what that confusion was, because the factors were established. If you look at 709, the factors relating to how you were going to demonstrate need are pretty clear in the regulation. And I think the other thing is there were 16% of the applications did a terrific job in applying those factors across the board to the goals. So these were the factors that we were asking people to apply. What were the population characteristics? What were the utilization rates for health services? What were the standards of service utilization? Patterns of in and out migration? The need for populations that were underserved? These were the criteria that the very best applications applied almost in a very disciplined, discrete way in each instance. Next one, please. So, recognizing, okay, we now have the goal being, we want you to look at the public need criteria that's in the reg, how they advance the MRT goals, how is the RFA crafted. And again, if you look at the RFA criteria, they're very similar in the context of what was in the public need regs, except for a few additions. We wanted people to explain to us what was the organizational capacity that they could successfully implement the MRT initiative. So what did that mean? In many instances, what you saw in the best applications were they were very clear of either they were a managed long-term care program already, they were moving, had an application to become one, they were managing chronic populations with chronic needs, and they had specific programs relating to how to manage those populations. Several of the applicants went through in excruciating detail the IT systems that they had and how the IT systems were capable of linking the care and medical needs of a patient, not just within the child, but across an integrated system. So, individuals, that's how they met the organizational capacity criteria. We were looking for knowledge and experience in providing home health services. And I think you'll see as we go forward that except for one applicant that we approved, all of these were already established providers. And I know that was a concern that was expressed from the industry, was the concern that we weren't going to approve that somehow all these new entities were going to come into the state and create competitive issues. Well, that just wasn't true. And it wasn't probably true because in many respects of the criteria that we applied.